Good morning, Steph. I hate that I can't see you.
I know. We're having rain in LA, which means everything else is canceled. So let's talk. You tweeted Ivanka and Jared get subpoenaed. Donald is about to be indicted. So the question arises, who will throw who under the bus? You actually answered your own question. You said once Trump is indicted, he'll throw everyone on whom he has compromising information under the bus. It's what narcissists do. So what do you foresee here?
You know, given the 1-2 justice punch this week of Fani Willis down in Georgia and Jack Smith up in D.C., you know, first of all, it really looks like accountability is finally on the horizon. And I think once Donald Trump is indicted, I prosecuted a lot of narcissists. Once they decide to cooperate and plead guilty, and not all of them do. Some of them will, you know, hold out. They'll want their trial, and we'll give Donald Trump his trial, and he'll be convicted. But if he senses that, you know, there's something in it for him, if he starts giving up others, he will give up everybody. I mean, he'll give up his wife, he'll give up his children, he'll give up everybody if it means 1 minute less of prison time for him. That's what I would expect Donald Trump to do.
Well, that's what Michael Cohen's been saying forever. Let me run one other tweet by you. Black Knight tweets, Jared and Ivanka have some fun decisions to make when they testify to Jack Smith's grand jury. They can't change the story they gave the J6 committee, but they also don't know what other witnesses have told Smith, so no matter what, they could get busted for lying.
Yes, but here's the thing. We will often let witnesses cure the perjury. That's a term of art in criminal justice circles. So it was not at all unusual, Steph, for me to present somebody to the grand jury for the first time, and because they were scared, because they were loyal to the target of the investigation, because they had a fear of self-incrimination, they lied. Happens every day. We will often give them the opportunity to cure the perjury, which means going back into the grand jury and saying, okay, I was trying to protect Donald Trump. I was trying to protect myself. I was afraid of being a snitch. I'm sorry, I lied. Here is the truth. And we will, in essence, give them a pass for the prior perjury because we never want to take our eyes off the prize, which is the biggest criminal fish. So it wouldn't surprise me if Jack Smith worked something out to address Ivanka and Jared's lies to the J6 committee. There's little doubt that they lied. I mean, Ivanka said, I couldn't recall my father calling the vice president of the United States a pussy, even though there's lots of evidence that she heard it, she repeated it, she discussed it with others. She wasn't willing to say it before the J6 investigators, which constitutes technically not perjury, but what we call a 1001 false statement. It's virtually the same thing as perjury. So I think Jack Smith will give them the opportunity to cure the perjury without any penalty because what they want is the incriminating evidence against Donald Trump.
So let me run the good, speaking of Pence, the good and bad headlines by you. Special counsel asked judge to compel Mike Pence to testify before in the January 6th probe. And then Mike Pence's effort to block J6 testimony could succeed, experts say. Hugo Lowell tweeted, Vice President Pence not expected to ignore grand jury subpoena entirely, but would assert speech or debate for questions related to his presiding over the J6 joint session, which could prevent the special counsel from obtaining key testimony. Can you explain that to us?
I can, and I disagree with the legal experts who say that Mike Pence can successfully assert that he was a member of Congress who's entitled to speech or debate clause protection. Here's why. You have to read, and they have. I'm not trying to demean the legal experts. There's a lot of people with a whole lot more gray matter than me, right? What do I know, a gutter kid from Jersey? But when you read the Supreme Court cases, they say if a member of Congress is acting within, quote, the legitimate legislative sphere, then they will enjoy speech or debate clause protection. I don't care what anybody tries to sell us. Mike Pence is not a legislator. He does not work within the legitimate legislative sphere. The whole point behind speech or debate clause protection, Steph, is you want to preserve the integrity and the free flow of ideas in the legislative process, not in the ceremonial opening of the envelopes process on January 6th. I do not believe the courts will extend speech or debate protection to Mike Pence because it's contrary to what the Supreme Court has said about the nature of what is a sweeping absolute privilege when you're a member of Congress involved in legislating. So but here's what I'm so thrilled about, Steph. Jack Smith is on the offensive. Can I just tell you the way we ordinarily litigate these privileges? And you've seen it play out before. Jack Smith subpoenas somebody, puts him in the grand jury, asks him 6 hours worth of questions. The witness invokes all kinds of privileges, bogus or otherwise. Then they have to package it all up. They have to file briefs. They have to set arguments. They have to go to the courts, and it takes months and months and months. You know what Jack Smith did? He went on the offensive. He preemptively, he served a subpoena on Mike Pence on February 9th, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks later, he's filing offensive motions in court saying, I'm not even going to wait for all that, for him to go in and assert a bunch of bogus privileges. I'm on offense. In fact, I'm running a 2-minute offense. I want a preemptive ruling from the court that he doesn't have those privileges, and let's get this justice show on the road. Not only is Jack Smith running a 2-minute offense right now, but before he was appointed on November 18th, just 3 months ago, DOJ couldn't even get out of the damn locker room. They couldn't even set foot on the field and run a play. Look at what Jack Smith has done, subpoenaing a vice president, former chief of staff, a White House counsel, deputy White House counsel. For God's sakes, he subpoenaed the criminal defense attorneys representing Donald Trump. And Steph, I can promise you we almost never do that. He is going 100 miles an hour toward accountability, and we have got to all be behind him and support him.
This is fantastic news. My second favorite tweet of yours is Trump will soon be taking the midnight train to Georgia. Come on, Glenn. That's funny. But you said, will DA Fani Willis pursue a narrow, focused indictment or a sweeping RICO indictment of Trump and company? What is your take?
No, sweeping RICO is the way to go. So, Steph, I prosecuted lots of what I call standalone
I think
murder
that's
cases.
They did that in Karate Kid, didn't they? The sweeping RICO. That was the
that was
sweeping
the
RICO.
finishing move.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, justice on, justice off. But here's the thing, Steph. I tried a lot of standalone murder cases, which would be the narrow way to go. You bring one charge or one marquee charge. The problem with that is the jury doesn't have the power of context. They don't get a full picture and appreciation of all of the criminal conduct of Donald Trump and his corrupt associates. So what happens is, the defense team focuses like a laser beam on just that one charge and tries to defeat it, tries to undercut the proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I've tried RICO cases, Steph. When I throw 100 crimes at the jury, appropriately, lawfully, and ethically, when I throw 100 crimes at the jury that this one defendant or this one criminal organization was committing over time, the jury gets the power of context. They're like, this isn't just about one crime, one solicitation of election fraud. This is a gosh darn pattern. These are bad guys. These are career criminals. You have to go wide. You have to go broad. You have to put all of the crimes in one indictment that the law allows you to join in one indictment. Let the defense file motions to sever. We can win those motions. Give the jury the power of context, and they will hold these people accountable.
So the question of the week, of course, we have to ask the chatty Georgia grand jury forewoman.
God.
Does this have any effect legally or not?
Or precedent?
I am quick to anger when people, not you guys, but when the Trump, loyalists and flunkies and lackeys start mocking a 30-year-old young woman because, yes, she's quirky and she communicates in an unusual way. Guess what? We're all quirky in our own way. She's a 30-year-old young woman who was selected to be forewoman of that jury, who the judge said to her and everybody else on that special grand jury, you are permitted to go speak to the media, and here are the ground rules and the parameters, none of which she violated. I was so happy to see Judge McBurney give that interview to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution saying what she did was absolutely appropriate. In fact, she could have talked about more, but she didn't. God bless him for coming out and providing a little transparency and having her back because she did nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. Is it unusual? Is it unsettling? Yes, because typically in most jurisdictions, grand jurors are not permitted to talk about what happens in the grand jury. In Georgia, they are. Okay. The only prohibition is she can't talk about their deliberations. So I don't want to hear that this has any legal consequences or will inure to Trump's benefit. It won't.
Yeah. So let's talk about Fox for a minute. You said emails between Fox News hosts exposed Fox's intentional election fraud lies. Here's what the government can and should do about it. That was my and you said because hashtag Justice Matters. Mm-hmm. But that's what I had, had that question is, how aren't they legally also liable for this incitement of violence based on, again, as people are saying, that it's intentional. The volume of emails and texts showing they know they were lying is what makes it so damning, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is a big topic for me this week. They are liable, certainly in the civil sense. Are they criminally responsible? There's only one way to find out, Steph. Pursue criminal charges. Let me just run this to ground real quick. When I hear people, the Dems more often than not, say we can't do anything because of the First Amendment free speech sweeping protections, and there's this case called Brandenburg that sets a very high bar for holding people accountable for lies that are likely to incite violence, right? When I hear people throw up their hands and give up before they even enter the fray because they claim the First Amendment doesn't allow us to do anything about hate speech and false speech that is likely to incite violence, I ask this question. Do the Republicans sit around and say, boy, we'd like to pass legislation that would revoke a woman's constitutional privacy rights, but Roe v. Wade, so we can't do it? No. What do? They do it, and then they do it again and again. They did the same thing with their hateful Muslim ban. They did it 4 times before they could find 5 hateful Supreme Court justices that would side with them. They fight these battles. We don't fight these battles. We throw up our hands. And we say there's 50-year-old precedent, Brandenburg, that says First Amendment protects this. No, let's go on the offensive and try to fight these battles.
Yeah. I mean, you said it best. You said it's time for the federal government to step up, deal with phone news organizations intentionally spreading incendiary lies that are likely to, perhaps even intended to, incite imminent violence. That's the fire in a crowded theater line to me. But Glenn, so much good stuff. We don't have enough time. But we will talk to you again next week.
Hey all, Glenn Kirschner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters. I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirschner wherever you generally get your podcasts.